For my last birthday, I got myself a whole bunch of art supplies that ultimately ended up just sitting on a shelf, collecting dust because I found myself in a state of paralysis, unable to even start drawing, let alone experiment with new mediums. March Hotel got me out of that mindset and actually creating every single day. When that ended, I immediately joined a new art challenge, Plein Air April. The server I joined had very lax rules. You must draw and post daily. You must draw as a study, not from imagination, and you must spend at least 2 minutes drawing every day. I added a personal challenge. Every day, I have to paint in watercolors. So, some of my birthday supplies got used this April. This is my first time using 100% cotton paper, so I got myself both cold and hot pressed to feel the difference. Hot pressed is a lot more smooth in texture, and cold has a kind of grainy texture. And this is a travel set, but instead of the fancy brush that I probably should have been using in the paint set, I mostly ended up using a very cheap brush that you fill with water that I got at Walmart. And that is because I had a very limited time to paint each day, so I wanted to make sure that I could get it done fast. So, the first day, this is what I've got. Day 2, I used a reference from my own garden. So this is the trunk of an almond tree, some comfrey leaves, a few weeds, and I had no idea what I was doing with these watercolors. And this particular piece is about the most humbling. But every day, I got a little bit better. I learned a little bit more about how to use these watercolors. And I got some feedback from others doing the challenge. We were given references to use every day, but we weren't required to use them. And I used a lot of references from other people in the community that were sharing them. Whoop. Got stuck together. This one was fun. The study was just some clouds, but the reference image itself was completely black all the way around. This was from a YouTube screenshot in Norway. This was of a thunderstorm that had lit up the sky purple. The photo's really beautiful. This was my husband's favorite. So this one, I used the reference that was provided, but I decided to try using completely random colors. I was starting to get a little bit burnt out by day 17, so this was how I kept myself in the game. I kept my study to the shapes and the composition and just had fun with the colors. And the day after, I bended the rules a little bit and I drew all of the background from imagination and left my study to being just this silhouette of a tree and studying the tree's structure and how it branches out. I think about here I start to get a little bit more relaxed and I start letting myself leave spaces where the white of the paper can come through between colors, between the foreground and the background. In this piece, I used a lot of flicking the edge of the brush to get the speckled effect. This was a 15-minute panic study because I was about to miss the deadline. And this one, well, I don't know if I would call it finished, but I spent an entire hour on this piece, sketching in the shapes and then blocking in some color on top. This was probably the most difficult one that I decided to do. There's a whole bunch of reflections in the windows, as well as what you can see that is actually inside the building, and it completely tripped me up, and I spent a lot of time trying to get it to look semi-decent. And the day before last, I came back to what I had done on day 2 to see how much I had progressed and how much I had learned. And I'd say that there is a pretty big difference between day 2, when I had just started using watercolors and didn't really understand how they worked, and the amount of detail that I'm able to get now. It's the same image, but better. It feels really good to do side-by-sides and see how much I've improved. And this was the last day. So, the first and last days. It might not be the same reference, but there's still a pretty stark difference in how clean everything looks. These are also on different papers. This one's on the smooth hot press paper, and this one's on the cold press. I went back and forth the entire month, just experimenting and seeing what I like better, and I ended up not knowing. Oh, I'm gonna have to censor that. And then, after everything was over, I painted a picture that my grandmother had sent me. So, I'm going to give this to her. I'm going to get it framed and mailed out, and that is the end of everything that I drew during Plein Air April.